Unmute. There's Callum.
Hello everybody, welcome to our fantastic event tonight. My name is Amy Carrington and I am absolutely thrilled to welcome you to our very first Write What's Next showcase. I am the project manager at Writing on the Wall, looking after projects that are aimed at developing adult skills, confidence and aspiration. Many of our courses like Write to Work, Enterprise Hub and Write What's Next look to use creativity as a tool for change, especially for those who may have experienced barriers to employment or to working in the arts industry. Tonight, I will be introducing our wonderful host, Bidisha, and three of our talented writers from Write What's Next. But before I do that, I just need to do a few bits of housekeeping. So we are live on YouTube. If you do not wish to be recorded, please do turn your camera off. But if you do feel comfortable to do so, it's lovely to have your camera on because we love to see your faces in the room. We do advise that tonight you watch on Zoom in speaker view, and you can do that by going to the top right-hand corner of your screen and clicking the icon there and changing it to speaker view. I will be checking the event tonight, and Lauren, who is our wonderful project worker across all of our adult offer, is here as our moderator. So that just means that if you have any questions that you'd like to ask later on in the Q&A section, you can send them over to Lauren, and Lauren will send them on to our host, Bidisha. If you also have any problems with your tech or anything like that, Lauren will be there to help you. So a proper introduction to this course and our host for this evening. Back in May 21, myself and our head of programs, Emma Hume, were having conversations with many LCR residents who had been disproportionately affected by the pandemic in terms of their pathways into employment. After further research, we know that our mentoring model would be perfect and really effective in this case to help some of these people to progress the way they wanted to. We applied and received funding through the European Social Fund Community Grants with WEA, who are such a fantastic organisation, incredibly supportive and dedicated to providing a brilliant course just like this one. Through them, we've created Write What's Next, a 16-week mentoring course that matched unemployed people from the LCR who were creative with high-profile established writers such as Bidisha. Some of our other writers on the course have been Joelle Taylor, Yvonne Battle-Felton, Naomi Sumner-Chan, and Chris Fittick. Each mentor worked with 3 emerging writers over 12 weeks, sharing their knowledge, advice, and developing a plan for their next steps. Tonight, you will meet 3 of these wonderful writers who have worked with Bidisha, and we have, at WOW, we have been absolutely blown away by their imagination, their passion for excellent storytelling, and their commitment to their values and vision for their future. I am thrilled to introduce our host for this evening, Bidisha. Bidisha is a broadcaster, journalist, filmmaker, and author. She specializes in international human rights, social justice, and the arts. She writes and commentates for the main UK broadsheets such as The Observer, The Guardian, BBC, and more. Bidisha has also been our writer on the book and is a longtime friend of WOW. So welcome, Bidisha.
Thank you so very much, Amy, and welcome to everyone. I'm going to do a very short introduction, and then without wasting any more of your time in this pre-dinner slot, we're going to get straight on to showcasing, promoting, and celebrating our authors. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Write What's Next showcase, brought to you by Writing on the Wall. It's the result of many months' work, which began back in September 2021 with weekly online seminars. I'm Bidisha, and as Amy said, I'm a broadcaster, presenter and filmmaker, and tonight we meet 3 amazing new talents. Joseph Roberts, who'll be presenting his poetry, Callum Wooding, who's presenting his games concept, and Rebecca Williams, who'll be writing and talking about her young adult novel. All of these projects are well underway and thought through, if not always written through, to completion, so they are really ready to go. These are ripe talents. If you have any questions for tonight's three authors, please do type them into the Q&A function, and we will try to get to as many as we can before the end. This session will end at 7:30 p.m. at the very latest. So those are the parameters of tonight. First, a few words from me about tonight's showcase. It's a chance for us to impart our sense of inspiration and pride in our writers towards you, the audience. And it's a chance to introduce three wildly talented writers to an audience of their peers. We also wanted to invite agents, editors, scouts, commissioners, and producers who work within and around publishing to consider the three artists we have with us tonight. You can have all the talent in the world, but you need doors to open if you want to professionalize and get out there into the world as a professional writer, whatever field of writing you're in. First of all, we greet Joseph Roberts. Sometimes Joe Roberts, I'm going to leave it to him to define himself. He'll be talking about his debut poetry collection, which is called Frisbee. Joe, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's Joseph Roberts. I'm a spoken word poet from Liverpool. I'm currently in my first year of university, and I'm studying English literature and creative writing at John Moores here in Liverpool. I'm very passionate about writing, and especially the performance elements of it. I've been around the open mic circuit for a few years now, and I really enjoy it. Could we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, to the next one as well. Thank you. So the project that I've been working on for the last 12 weeks is a poetry collection. Now, this poetry collection contains 30 contemporary poems under the theme of inequality and injustice. In March of 2020, when the first lockdown hit, I had a lot of free time due to all schools being closed, which led me to begin writing this book. But it was the 12 weeks of this program that truly brought it together and ensured that there was a sense of professionalism and quality. And it's definitely done now, and it's ready to be for the publishing process to begin. Well, where did I get Frisbee from? Well, I had a lot of free time, and I went to the park a lot, and I would go for a morning run. I would come back, have a shower, have my dinner, and I would write before bed, and that's what I did for days on end. Now, nearly every day, when I was in the park, I saw a man with his two dogs, and they were playing fetch with a Frisbee. And one dog was small, and the other dog was big and muscular. And when he threw the Frisbee, the little dog would never catch it, never be able to keep up, never be able to get the Frisbee. And yeah, the dog didn't taste the plastic Frisbee once. And the proud, big, muscular dog would always bring it back to the owner. And in that moment, I thought about, especially with what was going on, we had the death of Sarah Everard, George Floyd, and the pandemic and everything. And I saw it very cruel, in a very cruel way. And the Frisbee in the air, it was freedom, the freedom we craved, but it was also controlled by the amount of power put into the throw. And all the problems that came our way were too fast to see, too high to catch, but we were all in it together. And it made me think about so I started writing about masculinity, knife crime, women's safety, the environment, the pandemic as well. So could we go to the next slide, please? So these poems they're written in many forms: elegies, haikus, free verse. But I like the spoken word. But I thought I would just read to you a very short extract from the introduction of the book to give you a little idea of the style of writing and to set up all those themes before I go into a little bit of reading of the poetry. So this is an extract from the introduction. You might think I'm crazy, how I can see a game of fetch after a run and think and feel all of this. But imagine being that little dog, trying and trying and trying and getting the same result. To then wake up and do it all again the next day and compete with an unfairly matched opponent. If only I could talk to animals, I would tell that little dog to give up. What's the point in chasing the frisbee? Why continue to be beaten and be fooled? Can we go to the next slide, please? Every dog has its day. And you know what else they say about dogs? If you back a dog up into a corner, they'll bite. But there is no corner in this open field. There is no scenario for him to choose fight over flight. In fact, he can't even choose flight, because you can't exactly run from a game that involves running, because you just look like a little blind dumb dog trying to fetch the sun millions of kilometers away. And the dog has no concept of time and doesn't know when his next bowl of food will be. So he would rather play a losing game of fetch and do whatever he is told to survive. So the frisbee continues to be thrown, and every day there is a different headline in the news. Right now, as you read this, there is someone starving, someone being raped, someone being kidnapped, someone being murdered, someone being beaten up for speaking up. If the ground was paper and the oceans were ink, I still don't think I would have enough resources to write everything I want to say. So here it is, captured in a throw. Inequality and injustice has always been on this globe, and I think, unfortunately, will continue to stay. But it is only through communication and discovery that we can grow, change, and move as a society into a better direction. That little dog doesn't know he is being played, because his tail wags from the thrill of just being outside. But you are now conscious of the game. So what are you going to do about it? Grow like the grass, change like the clouds, move like the frisbee. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I thought I'm going to perform one of this poem, A Man's Manual, in the poetry scene. This is my go-to. This is what people quite know me for, really. And the videos on YouTube you can find on my YouTube channel, because I think that's the way forward in reaching people. So I make videos. So this is also in the collection. And it's about masculinity, knife crime, and mental health. So I'm going to perform it to you now. When you put something together, you read the instructions inside the manual. They usually come with the product you bought. Well, when a man reads the instructions on how to build a real man, he will realize very quickly, according to the shop he bought it from, called society, that he is not enough. He looks at the packaging, and it's fascinating that a real man is shown so perfectly built on the box. Then he looks at himself and finds he has missing parts. The instructions say be strong, fearless, 6 foot tall and over, which leads to some men ending up 6 feet under. And there is no wonder why so many men don't try and take it and face it, because there are pages and pages of impossible instructions to follow in order to make it. And the brave man that remains and decides to build it ends up either breaking it or faking it. So he searches long and hard for the missing parts to create it. Goes to the clubs, goes to the pubs, starts drinking and mixing with different people in hope of changing how he's thinking, increasing the number of glasses, takes interest in others and copies all of them in his actions. Starts watching boxing matches, roars at the TV with passion, but still cannot find the answers. Learns all the football players' names, goes to all the games, gets a trade, follows the steps of his father's footsteps, does what he can to be a real man. Tries to become one of the lads, changes how he looks, begins dealing drugs, stays out all night, starts carrying a knife, commits murder, takes it that one step further, goes to jail, proves he's the alpha male, ends up the leader of a gang to be a real man. Flicks through the manual, doesn't understand it. It's as if it's written in a different language. He starts panicking, starts acting as fake as a mannequin. The mask of being masculine stops him from revealing his real feelings, so he keeps it in. Told to be a provider, told to man up and stop whining, so he decides to disguise it. Told to stop crying, so he starts lying and tries to hide it. Told to be emotionally silent, but at the same time be violent. And these are requirements. Manacles are wrapped round his wrists and ankles. Shackled as he shuffles and stumbles round instructions, he can't tackle the fact he ain't a real man, which means he won't have a real son, and he won't be a real dad. And after going to all the games, he ain't a real fan, and it sends him real mad, and he feels real sad that he wasn't manufactured to society's satisfaction, and everything he imagined came crashing down into his hands. But he didn't have to look for missing parts. He just had to look inside his heart, because the whole time he was already a real man. Thank you very much. So can we move on to the next slide, please? So I'm just showing you very different styles of poetry, and I've actually been playing around with the words on the page, and I really want this book to be a breath of fresh air, and I want it to mark me as a 21st century poet. So this is a poem called Walking Home. She was walking home, keeping under the streetlights to stay seen. She repeatedly looked over her shoulders, house key between fingers, pretending to be on the phone, did everything she was told. Now, if we were to look at it on the page, it looks like steps as she's moving through the streets, and it's like she's walking home. So I've really been playing with the page and the words, and I think this is a really exciting for the poetry scene, and I'm looking forward to getting this published. Can we go to the next slide, please? So thank you for listening, everyone. If you want to follow me on YouTube, it's Joseph Roberts. You can find A Man's Manual, the video on there. You got my Instagram, official Joseph Roberts, Facebook, which is also official Joseph Roberts. And my email there is joerobertsj1122@gmail.com for any inquiries about even to perform. But I'm looking to get this published, so if anyone would like to contact me in regards to publishing, this manuscript is ready to go. I've got a cover letter, a synopsis, and a manuscript ready to go to be sent. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so very much indeed for being the inaugural, the brave writer kicking off tonight's showcase. That was Joseph Roberts talking about his debut poetry collection, which is called Frisbee. Working with him, I noticed his clarity and his intentionality, his high levels of motivation and self-direction, and his very impressive abilities to stick to his goals. As he mentioned, if you have any questions for the poet Joseph Roberts, please type them into the Q&A function and we'll get to them at the end. And now I'd like to move on and introduce the second of tonight's three writers. Talking about games narratives, please say hello to Callum Wooding, who'll be talking about his game, which is an immersive narrative called Blood Moon. Callum, over to you.
Wow. First of all, Joseph, a round of applause. That was absolutely amazing. And it was a privilege to be working with you alongside Rebecca and Bidisha. A lot of people here today. But hi, my name is Callum Wooding. I am very passionate about creating game narrative. The type of story that I'm about to present to you is an open world role-playing game. It may seem complicated to some people that are not familiar with kind of games, but I will do my best to explain it into the presentation and in the Q&A. So Blood Moon is a vampire game involving the eclipse and how to prevent it. But without further ado, let's play the clip, please.
Hey everybody, my name is Kellen Wooding and the project that I'm showing you today is called Blood Moon. Blood Moon is an open world role-playing game, and the choices and decisions that you make will have massive consequences for the entire city, the characters, and the protagonist and the story. So it's very important I tell you, what you're about to see and hear is not the final look of the project and is likely to change over the course of developments. And it is not for children, okay? Make that very clear. So Blood Moon is split into 3 acts, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. All of them have their own type of setting and different missions that you have to do throughout the story. Like I said, it's an open world, so you can free to explore the world as much as you want. Blood Moon takes place in present day in 2010 in a small city called New Orleans. You play as a main protagonist, Max Dawson, who is a reporter. He's a very unsuccessful reporter, trying to make it big in a small city. But then he is informed about the religious cult that have been kidnapping people and taking them away to harvest them. Nobody's ever seen them. Nobody's ever caught them. Nobody's ever found what their plans are or what they are. Until Max is getting a call by his boss informing him that they found the cult, they may have a lead, and to tell him to get his camera and to get pictures of them. But as he gets his camera and all that, he gets a few pictures, but then he is then kidnapped by the cult and then is taken to a hole in the night. It's the center, and that is where he is met by Alden, the Vampire King. Alden tells Max when the eclipse comes, he will bring hell into Earth and will bring his army of demons to the city, and then he turns Max into a vampire. So throughout the story, you are given multiple choices, multiple options that will have massive consequences for the entire city, but it also depends on what kind of vampire you are. Are you a good vampire or are you a bad vampire? It all depends on you. You are given multiple choices. And throughout the story, the moon changes. It slowly changes to a blood moon, meaning that the eclipse is coming, and it means that Alden is coming. With no choice, no help, with nothing, Max has no choice but to go to the military and ask for help. They immediately say, no, we think you're the cause of this problem and we're going to harvest you. But then he shows them that he's not the enemy, and he tells them where to maybe find them. In the woods, there is a center at the hole where so many of the demons are coming out to attack people. Max tells the army to go with him to hell, to maybe help him close the gates to make sure that none of the vampires come out, or any of the demons. As they make their way through the hell, they are then attacked by multiple enemies, including Alden himself. That comes a massive demon. So the plan doesn't work, and at the cost, multiple soldiers' lives are lost. Max is the only survivor that gets out, and their blood, the army, is in their hands. So we gotta talk about endings. You don't just get one ending in this game, you get multiple endings. It all depends on the choices that you make. It can end early, it could end late, it could end multiple ways. So there are total, I believe, there are total 8 different endings to the story. There may be even more, but that's the number I've got down. But we're going to talk about the main ending, which is the good ending. It also is the canon ending. But Alden tells Max one final time why he's doing this, why he chose Max, why he wants to save the world from destruction. Alden is Max's father. Alden tells Max that he is the reason why he is the vampire. He's the reason why he's here. He's the reason why all this is happening, and he wants him to join him. He wants his son to help him save the world, because Alden believes the world is dying. Humans are a dying species, and he believes by changing them into vampires, it could save them, but at the cost, it would lose their humanity forever. So you are given a choice at this part. You can choose to say, I will stand by you, or you can choose to say, no, I'm going to kill you. But for this one, we're going to say no. And Alden, frustrated, lashes out and opens the gates of hell and causes massive destruction to the entire city. And Max has no choice but to face his own father and to take him down once and for all. And at this final moment, you are given another choice to either spare Alden, to send him back to hell, or kill him. And for this one, we're sending him back to hell. So Max grabs him by the arms and throws him back to the center of the hole where hell is. And with that, the demons see that Alden is defeated. He is no longer the strongest vampire. They see that Max is more stronger and now sees them as their leader. And Max orders all the demons and the vampires to go back to hell. And with that, Max absorbs Alden's powers and moves the sun away from the moon to bring the moon back. Now that I told you the story, I want to tell you what inspired me to make stories. What really inspired me to be writing. I'm going to take you back approximately 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, I should say. January 23rd, 2021, I tested positive for COVID-19. It was one of the most toughest experiences of my life. I was sick, I was hungry, I was tired, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything. I just prayed, I just wish I was dead, because I was just in agony. 2 weeks of just in bed, wide awake at night, tired in the morning, just all over the place, just could not eat, couldn't do anything. And at that point, I did not achieve much in my life. I dropped out of college. I lost all my friends. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have much family. And I barely had any money. And I barely had a roof over my head. So I was making nothing. I felt like I achieved nothing, and I just wanted it to all end. But my very wise mother insisted that I go to writing on the wall. And at first, I was really skeptical about going there, because going somewhere new is not really my strongest suit back then. At first, I was really scared about it, but she just told me, if you don't like it, just leave. I decided to stay because I really wanted to try it. And basically, I met Bidisha herself, and I told her the story. This was originally the story that I pitched to her. This was called Dawn of Redemption. This was back in September. And she told me that she loved it and she wants to hear more about it. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. Dawn of Redemption is basically like the same as Blood Moon, open world RPG. Choice that you make, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, it was something that was already been told before. It was a revenge story in a zombie apocalypse, which I'm personally a big fan of revenge stories, but I feel like the setting of it was just wrong. So I kind of just took that away for a bit. And that's when I got these. It all came back to the same thing: vampires. The vampire games, the movies, the TV shows, all of it was related to vampires. And there have been vampire games, but I feel like they have not been properly executed and delivered properly. There have been like vampire games where the tell you an amazing story of bad gameplay, but there's also a company that makes the most amazing gameplay but a bad story. I'm the complete opposite. I want to give you an amazing story and give you amazing gameplay. So I want to give you the freedom to make choices that have massive decisions. I want you to be into this story. The reason why I chose a game over a movie or a show is because in a show or a movie, you're just sitting there and you're just watching, you're just listening. But in a game, you live it, you control the protagonist, and the RPG, the role-playing, really has a key role into this. You make a choice and it has massive decisions and massive consequences, and then you are left thinking, did I do the right thing there? Was that a right choice? That's what I really want. I want you to be like, I gotta make this choice. This is hard. And this is where the story gets into place. I knew I wanted to be a vampire, but I didn't know what the story would be about. But then I got more and more into the eclipse and to the blood moon. And these have a key role in the story, as you've heard. So I basically really wanted this to be a part of it. And as I rose more into it, I learned more about it, and the more it got interesting to add. And throughout it, I read these 3 books. The Story by Robert McKee, which is a fantastic book. I highly recommend it if you're just wanting to start writing stories. It really just helped me indulge and get ideas for Blood Moon. So once again, I highly recommend it. The Acting and How to Do It by Nick Mosley is another book which is not related to Blood Moon, but it's related to me because I also want to do acting as well as writing. Hopefully one day I will do. Like I said, I really recommend all 3 of these books. And the Directing Actors by Judith Watson is to basically help direct actors into the right set of tone of what the story is. So this is the beginning of what I have planned. I have planned multiple different stories. I want to make amazing stories for just game, movies, and shows. And I really would like to really meet other people and collaborate and to hear their ideas into one story, to really just build a teamwork around it. So at the moment, I have 5 other stories in development. They're all being written as we speak right now. So hopefully I can get them done. But like I said, I'm very open to people suggesting their ideas to me. So I want to say a special thank you to everybody from Rising on the Wall, Bidisha Manta, Amy Carrington, Rebecca Williams, Joseph Roberts, and all of you watching. This has been one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I would not change it for the world. If I could just go back to my 17-year-old self and just tell him, you don't have a job now, you're not doing much now, but when you meet everybody from Writing on the Wall, you're gonna just do amazing things. I'm very happy, I'm very proud of everything that's happened, and I'm just very fortunate enough to working with all of these amazing people right here. If you would like to contact me, my email address is below. Once again, thank you all so much. It means the world to me. Thank you very much.
Wow. Apologies for the bad audio. I was using my laptop for that. But like I said, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for everybody in the Rising on the Wall, Bidisha, Amy, Rebecca, and Joseph. It's just an absolute privilege to be working with all 4 of you. I would literally do all of this again in a heartbeat. Just once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me. Thank you.
Thanks for those very kind words. That was Callum Wooding with his game Blood Moon and a dash of Dawn of Redemption. You can see there Callum's rich imagination and his abilities as a screenwriter and a games developer, connecting dialogue, character, action, and plot together to create a compelling narrative. Thank you. And if you have any questions for Callum, or indeed for any of us about writing, structuring, editing, how to develop a story, but also the professional aspects, how to be published, how to pitch your work, please do. Don't be shy. Type them into the Q&A and we will get to them at the end before we have to close at 7:30 tonight. And now I'd like to introduce the third of tonight's three writers. We have Rebecca Williams, writing as R.L. Williams, and she's been working hard on a fantastic young adult manuscript called Happy Again. Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you, Bidisha, and well done, Callum. It was an amazing concept and I loved listening to it for weeks. And well done, Joe. Your poetry is amazing and I can't wait to read it when it gets published. Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Williams, or R.L. Williams. And for the last few weeks, with the amazing help of, I've been able to help write my own manuscript for the YA novel field called Happy Again. It started as a little part-time hobby, and then a good friend of mine named Jamie interested me in trying to make it more, and now I'm here. So I am now going to show you a video of an extract from the very beginning of my story, and I hope you all enjoy it. If you could just get it up, please. Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Williams. I'm a young up-and-coming novelist, particularly in the YA novel field, and today I'm going to be reading you an extract from my up-and-coming novel, Happy Again. It is a story of a girl named Ella who loses her mum and her best friend all in one. Her dad ends up becoming an abusive alcoholic. She loses friends, her family, self-esteem, self-confidence, every issue you can think of. And she starts to feel unimportant in her life, but later on discovers she's the most important person in someone else's life. So I like to use the story as a metaphor to say you might not feel important, but you are always important to someone else in their world. So I'm going to read you an extract now, and viewer discretion is advised. It does contain strong language. Another day, another damn day. Ella thought to herself as she first opened her eyes. The 18-year-old girl found herself hating to wake up lately. Ever since her mother passed away in a car accident last year, she lost all hope and joy in every aspect to do with life. She stopped spending time with friends and family completely, lost all interest in the hobbies she had, and just kept to herself constantly. After mulling over her feelings and finding the will to get out of bed, she forced herself up and made her way to the bathroom to get ready to go to school and to face the day, despite how difficult it felt for her. She hopped in the shower to wash her hair and body, then got out to dry. Once that was done, she put on a very natural face of makeup, styled her hair into a messy bun, and went to get dressed. She decided on her favourite pair of navy blue ripped jeans, a white crop top with black writing on that read, "Sarcasm is my first language," and her first favourite pair of black and white Converse. She loved those shoes so much, as evidenced by all the scuff marks on the sides and soles. Just as Ella thought she was done getting ready, against her better judgment, she wore her mother's emerald pendant with a silver chain. As she put it around her neck, she let it fall to sit on her chest and stroked her fingers delicately over the beautiful gem. As the memories came flooding back to her, a single tear poured onto her right cheek, which she hastily wiped away and stood up to leave for school. Ella finished off her look with a pair of silver earrings and a black leather jacket. She made her bed very quickly, looked in the mirror one last time while hoisting her school bag onto her shoulder with a huge sigh, picked up her purse and dropped it in her bag, then swung her bedroom door open and left to start her crappy day. As Ella descended down the stairs into the living room, her nose was assaulted by the potent smell of beer and cigarettes, causing her to become distracted, so she didn't notice that the can that was sitting on the second to last step, which caused her to slip and fall on her butt, which was definitely going to leave a bruise due to the impact. As she stood up and got herself reorganised, she looked around the room to see the absolute vulgar state the room was in. The room was coated in crushed empty beer cans, stacked up into piles that sat at ridiculous heights. The ashtray on the coffee table was overflowing with cigarette butts and ash. There was half-eaten food everywhere, stains all over the carpets and curtains, and it was difficult to see due to the amount of smoke in the room. As she looked over at the couch, she knew exactly what the culprit was. Ella quietly made her way over to look at the absolute mess of a man that was laying on her couch passed out. It was her father, Darren. After Ella's mother died, Darren became a raging alcoholic. Losing his wife sent him into a complete downward spiral, and he became an absent father to Ella too. She thought he was such a bastard. Ella just looked at him in complete and utter disgust. She leaned over to check his pulse and that he was breathing, went to the kitchen and grabbed a huge soup pot and put it below his head on the floor, so that when he woke up, he wouldn't be sick all over the floor like he had in the past. Once that was sorted, she walked over to the door and opened it very quietly, because if her father would have heard her leaving, it wouldn't have ended well for the poor girl. After quietly shutting the front door, she started her daily morning walk to school. She stopped off at her favourite bakery to get the same breakfast she always does: 2 chocolate croissants and a white coffee with 2 sugars. She devoured the croissants in 5 minutes flat and downed the coffee, even though it scalded her tongue due to the heat. Not that she even noticed, because she doesn't feel anything anymore. She put her headphones in to blast in music for the last 10 minutes of her walk. As she listened to her favourite walking playlist, she lit one of her father's cigarettes that she stole from him and watched the cars speed past her on her daily adventures, dreaming she could be in one of them just as she could leave this town and start a new life. But those kind of dreams are for fools, she thought, and she was sick of giving herself false hope. Carbon Hill High School, a giant shithole that claims that all they want is what's best for all their students, but the second any sign of trouble came to light, the school turns their back on you and tells you there is nothing they can do, so to be a big girl and get on with it. Fucking assholes. Ella made her way through the halls, just trying to get to her locker. Even though Ella could see and hear everyone around her, she was like a ghost to everyone else. No one seemed to notice they were nudging her, standing on her, and she even accidentally got hit in the face. But they had no clue what they did because she was invisible. Well, to all except one. Chloe, Shannon and her flock of bimbo followers, Tessa and Louisa. They all could have been an exact clone of each other if it wasn't for the tiny details that helped you tell them apart. They all had long over bleached blonde hair, fake tan that made them all look like pumpkins, ridiculously long neon-coloured nails, teeny tiny tops and shorts to match, 8-inch stilettos and an unbelievable amount of jewellery. They were bootleg Barbies come to life. But of course, everyone loved them. The 3 girls cornered Ella by her locker. Chloe looked at the girl like a lion looking at a gazelle, ready to pounce and feast on her prey. But she settled on an evil smirk instead to try and make Ella scared of her, even though she really wasn't. She just didn't like Chloe as a person or Chloe's attitude toward other people. The girls decided to knock Ella down a peg just for the fun of it. Hey, Smeller, good job looking more butch than usual. All 3 girls started laughing in unison at what Chloe said, while Ella just stared at them with impatience. Thanks, Chloe, and good job to you too, for looking like more of a dumbass slut than normal, Ella said while giving her a very sarcastic smile and putting 2 thumbs up to her as well. She started to turn her back on the girls, hoping that would be the end of it, but oh, was she wrong. As she started to turn, Tessa and Louisa grabbed her by her arms and pinned her to the lockers, while Chloe wrapped her hand around Ella's throat and her long nails were digging into the back of her neck. Ella was sure she was bleeding. Listen here, you little bitch. I will make your life more of a living hell than it already is, Chloe told her furiously. But Ella was looking back at her, still completely unfazed by what was going on. Good luck with that, dumbass. Now, if you will excuse me, I need to deal with the rest of my day. Or you can just kiss me and admit you like me, but if not, you might want to stop choking me and pressing your fake tits in my face, Ella said with another sarcastic smile, and just to annoy Chloe, Ella licked at her lips and leaned in, pretending she was going to kiss her. Chloe let go of Ella's neck and grabbed her head instead, still pinning her to the lockers, smacking the back of Ella's head into the lockers in the process. The thing that really upset Ella the most was that no one seemed to notice what was going on, Even when she was being hurt and threatened, no one seemed to care. Chloe threatened Ella by saying, "I will fucking kill you, bitch." Chloe then threw Ella onto the floor and wiped her hands on Tessa's dress. After touching Ella's hair, "Come on, girls, I need to go wash my hands after touching this flea-ridden dog." The three girls started laughing as they stepped over Ella, who was still on the floor, and then strutted away talking about it. Ella hated those girls, but they have never realised they don't scare her. They just annoy her and give her a headache. Ella touches the back of her head to make sure there is no blood after the impact her head hit the locker, thanks to Chloe. As she brought her hand back around to her face, luckily there was no blood, but there will definitely be a massive swell there tomorrow. Ella then stood up and spun around on her heels to finally get into her locker before the bell goes for class. She punched the code into the lock and swung the door open with such force that it caused everything to fall out of her locker. She let out a huge groan while looking up to the sky in disbelief, then bent down to start picking everything up. As she started gathering everything up, she noticed something shining at the corner of her eye. It was a golden key, with an emerald-coloured flower keychain attached to it, but she had no idea where it had come from. That is the end of my extract from my new up-and-coming novel, Happy Again. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me read it. I hope to one day have this published and make sure that everyone else reads it. And hopefully you can all accept this metaphor and use it in your daily lives. That again, no matter how unimportant you feel to yourself, you are important to someone else as well, and you do deserve to be happy again. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night with us. Thank you. Bye.
Right, I'm sorry about the audio and how bad it was. I was filming on my phone, so I didn't have my laptop at the time, so it's really bad quality. But yeah, so the whole story is just how bad she feels, and then she ends up feeling that she's more important. She's more important in someone else's world. So it's a message for everyone else. And my hope is that if it does get published, other people can look at it and take on the message themselves and realize their self-worth, no matter how much it's been knocked down. But yeah, I don't really know what to say. It's yeah, I hope you enjoy listening to my story. I hope you do want to hear more of it. It is still in the works a lot, because I am also a young mum to a beautiful little boy who's age 2. So in my free time, I try and write as much as I can, but I will hopefully have it done. My target is the end of the year. So thank you very much for taking your time to listen to me, and I hope you enjoy your night. And a very big thank you to Amy and Bidisha for helping me get this story going and showing me that my voice isn't meaningless and that I'm able to make someone else happy with what I write. Thank you to Joe and Callum for not laughing at my idea and being a support throughout, and for actually enjoying listening to me. And a big thank you to Jamie, who I know is watching, for giving me that push that I needed to get myself out there on it. I feel like I'm gonna cry. And showing me that I have got that bit of worth to make other people smile as much as you make me smile too. So thank you, everyone. Back to Bidisha.
That was Rebecca Williams writing as R.L. Williams, author of the YA novel Happy Again. Now, I happen to know what happens a little bit further on in the story, and what I can say to you is that I love the addictive blend of storytelling, mystery, adventure, empowerment and inspiration in this narrative, which is full of bold characters and vivid scenes. I can see it on the bestseller list, and I can also see it at the cinema. If you have any questions for Rebecca, please do type them into the Q&A function and we'll get to them. But we are now at the stage of the evening where we have about half an hour left, and I have just one question each for each of our writers tonight. So scrolling right back to the beginning, we've got Joe the poet, Joseph Roberts, and if we can get everyone up on the screen, it would be very nice indeed. But let's see how that goes. Let me just keep on talking while we all come here. So my question for you, Joe, really is in the course of our writing, how did the poems in Frisbee develop and change as you worked on the collection and you brought it together as a collection?
I read a lot of news, and just from the headlines, and just as things progressed through the pandemic, through everything, and along with the knowledge I was gaining from you as a mentor, I was able to connect the dots in relation to what I was learning and what was going on around me, and then together I was making poems like every week kind of thing. I was learning different styles, and it just blended all together, and I kept the schedule, and the 12-week program really gave me permission to write and really pushed me to the finish line. So it developed just through what I was learning, but through also what was going on around me.
Thanks, Joe. I love what you say about giving yourself permission to write. Something that comes up very early on in all of these courses is that so often you encounter students that have got all the talent in the world and all the ideas in the world, but they won't give themselves permission to sit down at the desk and just produce something. It's as if they think that an editor is looking over their shoulder all the time. They don't realize that your first draft is just for you, and that by the time you get to submit your project to editors and commissioners, you will have perfected it 6 or 7 or 8 times. And that brings me on really to talk about content rather than the professionalization. My next question, Callum, it's for you. Thank you for that wonderful presentation about Blood Moon and those hints about Dawn of Redemption. And I don't think that you should completely sideline Dawn of Redemption. One day it'll probably be your great achievement, the sort of 300-hour game that people start and they get completely immersed in. But coming back to Blood Moon, I just wanted to ask, you were very careful when we were developing this idea to not just talk about action and adventure, but also to talk about philosophical questions, personality, psychology. So looking at your characters in Blood Moon, what kinds of emotional and philosophical challenges do they go through at the same time as all of the action and the glitzy stuff?
Oof, wow, that's a very good question. It's kind of like everything that I went through every day with this pandemic. You know, throughout the story, you are given multiple choices, and those choices will have massive consequences. And I've said this 4 or 5 times in this presentation, but it's very important that you understand that. This is like any just ordinary game that you just play. You just get one ending. So many emotions go through this story, and for these characters, you are the protagonist. I want you to be into this story. And I said this in the presentation, I don't know if it was clear enough, but with the game, you are really controlling the character. You're not just sitting back and just watching. You are in control of that situation. So I want you to be in that situation, and I want you to understand you are going to be faced with massive decisions. Some people will like it, some people won't, but you're going to have to be okay with that. And throughout the story, a lot of emotions went into this. Me personally, I physically felt like depressed after I finished this, but in a very good way. Oh man.
I like that question of good depression. And just to cap that point for all of our viewers, I like what you say about the potential for different endings. I remember our discussions about how when you have multiple endings, each one has to be as strong as all the others so that you make it clear there's not one approved ending. But also each individual ending has to be psychologically right. So everything that happens by the end of a narrative has to be justified by all the choices and decisions and plot points that went leading up to it. And that's something for all of our attendees and audience members to take away, that if you can handle a big plot with lots of questions, that's fantastic, as long as you can then handle the big plot ending with lots of answers. Now, Callum can do that. Not every writer can, but also not every writer wants to. So you always have to cut your story coat to fit the cloth that you have. It can be a narrow story, it can be deep, it can be long, it can be whatever you want it to be, as long as you end it in a satisfactory way according to its own internal rules. Rebecca, thank you so much for your reading. Everyone's apologizing for the quality of their audio. You all sound fantastic to me and very, very legible. My question for you, Rebecca, is you are incredibly modest about what happens in your novel. Now, I happen to know that at some point she meets a whole very exciting cast of characters, and she realizes that far from being the loser that she thought she was, your central character gets the potential, I'm trying not to give anything away, gets the potential to be a hero, a heroine, to be front and center, not just in her own life, but in many other people's lives. My question for you is, your central character enters a world that's full of magic and mystery and adventure. Does it force her to become brave?
Oh, yeah, in a way she didn't know that she had to be. She, like I obviously said in the video, she goes through all this stuff in the last year with family issues and personal issues. So she loses all her confidence in being brave again. She's just trying to get day to day. Just that's the only way she knows how to. So to then be thrown into this whole new world full of, I can't give any away that much, all these tasks and challenges, and to do all this, she has to step out of her comfort zone that she's put herself in. It's a shell she's put herself in, like a hermit crab. She has to get out that shell and go find a new one. So it does push her bravery standards and to trust herself and have to trust others again after she loses it all. So yeah, if that makes sense.
It does. There's so much we can't give away, but in a sense, all three of your projects they're not, I mean, Jo's collection is not necessarily an adventure story, but it's all about getting outside of yourself and connecting with the world. And that's the one reason I think we work together very well as a group, because what it proves is that if you are writing a games narrative, a poetry collection, or a YA novel, you have central figures, central voices that are all about engaging with the outside world, even if it's hard, even if it's tough. None of the characters in any of your works stays at home talking about how terrible they feel. Instead, the outside world pushes and pulls them and forces them to change and forces them to look at reality. Now, we're exactly at 7:01, and I can feel the heat of anticipation from the audience, the unseen audience, getting to us. A few questions have already begun to filter in. So if you don't mind my hand looking very enormous in front of the screen, I'm going to click onto my chat function. My God, there are 25 audience members here. Thank you very much indeed. And I will click onto my chat function because there are so many questions coming in. Lots and lots of congratulations for you three, Joseph, Callum, and Rebecca. I think we have a very, very happy audience. Extremely happy. Let's go right to the top. You're literally seeing my hand very big. Apologies. Okay, Callum, there's a really interesting question for you, and it's sort of almost like a business question. This is for people who are sort of outside the games world. Hi, we have a question for Callum come in. I don't know how the games world works. Do writers pitch the stories to developers or companies that then do the tech and distribution side of the game? Are you planning on doing the programming side? Which platform? Are there multiplayer options? Okay, there are lots and lots of questions within that. I think what the person is asking is, how does it all work? You have your idea, Callum. Tell us what happens next.
Wow.
It's a good question, though.
Very, very good question. I know who that's from. That's from Nancy, isn't it?
Well, maybe from Nancy. It came to me from Lauren, but also there's someone called Naomi who has asked a very similar question. So more than one person is interested in your answer.
So basically how it works, there's different ways how it works. I know some things about the gaming industry. I've not presented my story to developers yet, but my story is finished. It's ready to be presented. I'm really trying to push myself out of my comfort zone to really to get it developed. If we're talking about development side, we're talking about maybe 5 or 7 years in development, because This isn't like, yeah, I know, this isn't like, just a book that you can just write in and it's published, a game takes a long time to be developed. It's got to be, it all depends on the number of staff, the budget, the studio, and are the developers willing to do this. And I only have the plot. I don't have the dialogue, which I can do the dialogue. So, it's a very good question. I've yet to answer that. I don't really know how it works. All I know from what I've seen in other presentations from other developers is that the writers and directors and the I believe the people who code the game work together to try and build the world around it. So it's all about basically everybody's working together to make it as possible as can. I would expect to work with a lot of people, which I would be very happy to. As I said, I'm a very open person. If somebody has an idea for the story that I've not yet added, I'm more than happy to listen. It may or may not be in it, but I will always take it into consideration. So hopefully that answered your question. Is there any?
No, I think that what you say is exactly right, that when it comes to games development, that you have to then take it to a company who have the resources to develop it, however that may be. But you also make a really good point for everyone, which is, even though the idea for a writing project begins and exists in your own head, and you are, of course, the creator and the author and the artist, to get it out into the world, it takes a village. So for every single one of you and every emergent writer who's present tonight, the nearly 30 people we have, it has to go to an editor, a producer, a commissioner, whatever it is, and they then work on it with you, and a whole team of people bring it out. We have a wonderful question. Lots of people are very impressed by you, Rebecca, and they're saying how inspiring you are, and congratulations on getting the project together with other commitments. Such a powerful message through your writing. Your imagination knows no bounds. Keep doing what you're doing, girlfriend. But there's some nice questions in here, and perhaps you could answer it. What was your inspiration to write this story? When did you decide to write from a third person point of view with an all-knowing narrator? Did you already have your friends read what you have, and what did they think? Did you use any of your experiences in this story? Wonderful bunch of questions, really asking, what are the roots of this narrative?
Wow, that is a lot. To be honest, the inspiration, I was going through a really bad mental state at a time, and the way for me to cope is to write really short little silly stories. So it was like, the dog went to the park, the dog did this, and like little silly ones. And then I wrote this one pretending it was me, so it was like first person at the time, and it was just, she's got a bad life, she's got this, she finds this key, and then little silly one. And it wasn't until I mentioned it to my friend Jamie, who used to be a teacher. He taught English, and he was like, oh my God, that's dead good. You need to go, and like, we can get you involved. So he put me to WoW, and then it developed from there. And it was only before I started, I thought it's better to put it as it's her, not me. So then I thought, a third person view, it shows the world better than from my eyes. You see it from everywhere. So you get to see all the story, not just what I would see or what Ella would see as just her. You get to see all different points. None of my friends and family have actually read my story. I'll let you, to be honest, no one actually has read any of it. I haven't let anyone see it until it was done. Jamie is the only one that has ever read it outside of our little group. So I was going to him because he was a teacher. He'd helped me with like the grammar and the little bit. So he really helped. But no one else has actually read or any, and I'd never give any of it away. And to say, dealt with some of the stuff, I do deal with self-esteem issues and self-confidence issues myself. I did lose my father in 2018, which was devastating, and I'm getting through it as best as I can. My mum is not an alcoholic abuser. That was just, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't just have it like, he's moping. I thought if I had that bit of drama, it puts a new layer onto her, and then it gives her, like, I'm going to use a Shrek quote, okay? onions have layers. So it gives it a whole new layer to who she is and why she's so gritty and how she feels. But yeah, my mum is not an alcoholic abuser, but she does enjoy a wine every now and then. But yeah, so it was just, I was feeling down. I got someone give me hope that it was going to be good. I developed it. No one knows about it besides the people here, and obviously now everyone may be watching on YouTube. And yeah, it was just, and also I needed it for myself. I needed to create a character who I could make have that self-esteem to then go to myself. I need to do the same thing. I'm very good at giving advice. I'm not good at taking it. So I had to do it for myself to make myself take my own advice. Because if I've done it, I have to do it, if that makes any sense.
I think you answered that perfectly, and I love the way you speak about your own writing. So the takeaways for the other writers here and the audience are about how strongly you feel connected to your story. You should never write a story because you think it's going to sell, or it's going to be popular, or it's going to be made into a big movie, or it's going to make you famous. There must always be something from within yourself reaching out into the outside world. And you're also right in being cautious about who you show your story to. We spoke about this in the early weeks of our course together, which is how many people do you choose to be your co-readers and co-writers? And you have to choose carefully. The ideal person who's your second pair of eyes shouldn't be the person closest to you, because either they'll just give you the wrong advice, or they'll give you lots of compliments which don't help, or they'll just react according to their own taste. So if you write a crime story and they're into romance, they just won't get it. They wouldn't buy it anyway if they didn't know you. So that level of caution and self-awareness is extremely key. Thank you very much indeed, Rebecca. We have a question in for Joe, and the questioner wants to apply the same question to all of you. So we'll go to Joe first, and then Rebecca and Callum have a think as well. It's a very, very good question. If you met a young person looking to get into the creative world, what advice or guidance would you give them? Joe, let's go to you.
I would say whatever your outlet is, whether it's music, whether it's poetry, whether it's anything, you just got to get typing on a computer. You've got to get strumming on a guitar. You've got to get writing. And like your creativity will come out through the sound, or it'll come out through the ink. And the first step is making that decision and to do it for yourself. And I was having a discussion today actually with the writings on the wall, the writing bus project, which is currently going around Liverpool. And creativity, I mean, it's good for ourselves what we produce, but what's a painting without a set of eyes on it, or what's a song if it's not listened to, or a book if it's not read. We need to share it. It's just creativity. It's there to be shared. So I think you need to think the first step is just to have the confidence and to start writing, or just start on that endeavor, whatever that may be. And even with the likes of open mics, and you might feel nervous about starting or performing, but what I like to do is I like to put my feelings to one side, because I realize that what I'm talking about is much greater than me or you. It's much more greater than my 5 minutes of nervousness, because it is this message, and it has to be heard, because you don't know who's listening to it, or who's reading it, or who's viewing it. So that's what I would say.
Thanks so much. I love the idea of just taking that first step, breaking down a very daunting prospect into simple steps. Callum Wooding, would you agree with that? What's the advice that you'd give to a young person, maybe even your 16 or 17-year-old self, right at the beginning of their process?
Wow, it's a lot of different advice I could just sit here and give you all day. But as Joe said, when I started this course, I was very skeptical on how I could possibly even tell you a story. I didn't have nothing written down, but then I just told you, Bidisha, my idea, and then you just told me to go for it, and I did. But it wasn't until I read this book by Robert McKee, The Story, which is an absolutely fantastic book, and I highly recommend it. This book really helped me structure the idea for my stories, not just for Blood Moon, but for all the other kind of stories I have in mind. But my advice to you is just watch a lot of movies, read a lot of books, invest into a lot of story writers, and just write it down. It may look bad, but there's time for improvements. So, like I said in the presentation, I don't know if you could hear, but I said I have 4 other stories as well as Blood Moon that has already been written. They didn't look very good when I first started them, trying to get them up. They just looked like just a bunch of words that you just put in there. Me personally, I would just get on Word, put the idea down, and then the characters, and then slowly develop it in your mind, and then slowly write it down. But like I said, if you ever see this book, Robert McKee, The Story, beginner's book, highly recommend it.
That's fantastically useful. Thank you. Before we go to Rebecca, I just want to cap those 2 points for emergent writers who are here with us tonight. The first thing is absolutely do open up those Word documents, and each one that you want to work on, just title it according to the project and do what I call a brain dump, which is if you have an idea, just jot it down in the messiest way possible. You can always make sense out of it and order out of it later, and do what Callum says, which is instead of staying at your desk and making yourself think about the project, allow your mind to play about in the idea when you're doing other things. So allow yourself to think about it without the pressure of saying that you need a beginning, a middle, or an end. It'll come together in its own good time. And you may feel that even though it seems to be taking a long time, it isn't really. So 2 years, 3 years to complete a project is pretty average. It feels like a long time when you're doing it, but it's not in the scheme of things. Rebecca, I wanted to put that question to you. So the original question was, if you met a young person looking to get into the creative world, what advice or guidance would you give them?
Write what makes you happy. Write what helps you, kind of like what I did. Don't be afraid of what other people are going to say. Like Bidisha says, choose who you share your story with. It's personal, it's emotional, whoever you show it to. So, but don't be afraid to do it. Write what makes you happy. Write about whatever you want. Don't let anyone else's expectations stop you, and trust in your idea. I thought mine was going to go nowhere, and it's gone quite far. And just have that bit of confidence in yourself to get it down. And you never know, you could be the next J.K. Rowling, Jacqueline Wilson, the next Callum Wooden in game and development. You could be the next Joe Roberts, whatever. Just have that bit of faith, trust your idea. And if it isn't the best, redo it. Make it.
There's always time to improve.
Yeah, polish your idea. Practice makes perfect. You're never going to get it right on the first time. My first draft, I actually have it right here, is this long, and that's all. That's one chapter, and it is 35 pages, and there's literally 5 pages are just full of a paragraph, and that's just one paragraph. It's ridiculous. It was so bad. When I showed it to Bidisha, I was so embarrassed. But get it out, get all the emotion out, write everything that makes you happy, even if it's something stupid. Like I said, mine's the dog went to the park and found a bone and chased a chicken. If it makes you smile, and then you can work on it and it can become the next blockbuster.
I think that's absolutely excellent advice. The thing for people in the audience to take away is happiness. Write the story that makes you happy. Write it as far as you can take it, and also allow yourself to play about. And remember that in the first draft, in the brain dump draft, there are famous novelists who really just sit down for a month and 2 months, and they give themselves rules in the sense that they say, whatever comes to my mind, I'm just going to type it out. Even if my paragraph is 35 pages long, I'm not going to go back and correct. So they can do all the going back and correcting right at the end. And always remember that it's a great idea to write long and cut it down short. The writers who struggle are the ones who naturally are very edity, so they have trouble expanding the story back out again. But if you write something in 100 different ways, you just choose the 1 or 2 ways that are the best way to say it. Now, I'm going to urge the audience in the 5 or so minutes that we have left, if you have any burning questions all about writing, whether it's games, poetry, YA fiction, adult fiction, how to get into the industry, don't be shy. Type your questions into the Q&A function, because we do want to get to them, because we are going to close at 7:30. Now, there was a question for Joe which came in. You've had a nice compliment, Joe. You are such a confident performer. What advice would you give specifically for those who are starting out performing their poetry? So it's really about not writing, sort of embodying, reading, standing on a stage.
I think I mentioned it before. I'm really connected with what I write, and because of that, as I said, I realized that what I'm talking about, or what I'm going to perform, like a man's manual, is much greater than me. When you can separate the art from you as like 2 separate things, like I'm nothing but a voice just to say it, and I put my feelings to one side, me, whether I'm nervous, because I realize that what I'm talking about is much greater than this, the feeling a little bit nervous. So when you're on the open mic, you've got a 5-minute slot. Much greater than 5 minutes of feeling nervousness or messing up a word. In the grand scheme of things, it's the message, and it's what someone walks out the room with, if that makes sense. So it's just perspective then, I suppose. It's perspective to stop and go, yeah, I might have messed up, or yeah, I might be a little bit nervous, but it's to think about the other end of the creativity. That's what I would say.
I would completely second that, as someone who's made her career in front of microphones and cameras and screens, and I now work on directing actors as a filmmaker. Being confident, being connected to the material, and recognizing that the way something reads on a page is not the way it comes across if you're presenting it to an audience. So all 3 of our authors that we're showcasing tonight had a script, but of course their personality, their body language, their intonation also comes out. So they are really communicating a huge amount just by being there, often unconsciously. If you're a performer, the most important thing is to relax and enjoy yourself. That's very difficult to say if you're nervously presenting your first ever presentation, but practice makes perfect, but rehearsal makes perfect. So that image of the actor who's saying their lines in front of the bathroom mirror, actually it's a really good technique. So that by the time you get to the real event, the live event as we are now live on YouTube or Zoom or whatever it is, for you, it's actually the 20th or the 30th time you've delivered this particular script. And so then the sense of there being an audience, or the sense of feeling very, very self-conscious, that just disappears, because you've developed the muscle memory. You've developed all of those side skills that you need to communicate whatever it is you want to communicate. Now, we have some questions coming in, because as ever, when you have a live event, there's always a final burst when people are inspired. I just want to thank you, after appearing last year at a similar workshop. Gave me the confidence to apply further and get a job in journalism. I think that's the perfect way to go out this evening. There's someone who has been with us for a good long while. We've actually made a difference to people's lives, which is all we ever wanted to do. Well done, Patrick Graham. I'm just going to name check you, Patrick. Thank you so very, very much indeed. We are at 1922 on my computer, so very slowly and gently, I will read out my final paragraph, and then there'll be a lot of thank yous. It's like the Oscars. It ain't over till it's over. So let me get back to my script, and we'll shoot this straight down the line. That brings our session of the Write What's Next showcase to a gentle, slow, harmonious close. Please don't log off just yet. I have some very deserved thank yous to get through. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to Amy, Lauren, Madeline, and Mike from Writing on the Wall, the pioneering organization that brought you Write What's Next. What you don't know is that this is the team behind years and miles and megabytes of positivity, creativity, artistic enabling, events, meetings, panel discussions, everything that connects artistry and creativity to community, human rights, and social justice. Just Google Writing on the Wall if you want to know how much these people achieve and do. Thank you to the entire tech team for tonight. I think you'll agree it went without a hitch. I think we're very pleased. And thanks to you, our audience, for being present, engaged, and supportive. And above all, thank you to the writers, Joseph Roberts, for talking about his urgent and topical poetry, Callum Wooding, for leading us through his immersive and atmospheric games concept, and Rebecca R.L. Williams, for taking us into the exciting and mysterious world of her young adult novel. If you'd like to work with them further and follow up with some lovely opportunities, career advancement, the contact details will be made available. So just follow up with us and we'll hook you up. In the meantime, thank you all and have a wonderful evening. This concludes many months of collaboration and creativity.
Thank you so much, Bidisha. And please just stay for a few more seconds while I do my thanks as well. I want to say thank you to our writers for being so honest and inspiring tonight. Your words about creativity and your advice for new writers was just so on point and incredible. So thank you very much for sharing. I want to say a huge thank you to Bidisha. Your work with our writers. That none of this could have been possible without you. Your energy, your experience, and the creativity that you bring to Write What's Next has been the absolute catalyst that has made the huge impact that we've seen tonight with our emerging writers. So I know that I speak for Callum, Joe, and Rebecca with a huge thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to our funders, because without you, we wouldn't be here. European Social Fund, Education and Skills Funding Agency, and the Liverpool Combined Authority, all managed through the wonderful WEA, and a particular thank you to our support there, Lisa Smalley, who's with us all the time. Thank you to our audience. You've created such a fantastic, welcoming audience atmosphere tonight, and it's really appreciated and just completely on point with the WOW community. So thank you so much. While you're here, please tell us what you think. A monitoring form will be put in the chat. You can't get away without it. It takes a few minutes to fill in and it helps us know who is engaging with our events, and your comments will shape future events. This brilliant event is the first of 5 showcases, which will be happening across the city for the next 5 weeks. There are 4 more to come over the next month, so please go to our website for details and check out our social media for updates on how to get your tickets. The link will be in our chat and we will send it up in a follow-up email. The next event will be an in-person event with Naomi Sumner-Chan, who I know is here tonight, and 3 more of our Write What's Next writers. So once again, thank you to our writers, Bidisha, and to our audience. Good night, everybody.